direct conversation, some deep reactions, please. All this comics narration ain't late me. A little more talk, a lot less read. A little fight, baby, is what I need. Close the trade, open up your brains. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome to Season 6. Leia, can you believe Season 6?
It doesn't seem correct.
Of Right Conversations. My name is Josh Wasta, and with me, as always, she's got enough guilt to start her own religion. It's Ms. Leia Cameron.
Happy high holidays to all.
And with us for the first time, well, we also do have the Baronessah, Miss Jennifer Howland, sitting in, which means that you will be making stuff up, probably.
Maybe. Who knows? This is your favorite, so probably not.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
But hello.
And first-time guest, Zombie. Zombie, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me here. So, he's going to be Dr. Zombie, I suppose.
Hey, Dr. Zombie.
The nice moniker.
Yeah.
Very fancy.
As I've said on our Marvel chat, that really is kind of our queer chat / just life chat. It is kind of come to.
Mhm.
You are the only pharmacy student or pharmacist that I've ever known that did not spend any time being a drug dealer.
I'm a drug dealer of legal drugs.
Right. No, this is like literally I knew people that put themselves through pharmacy school by selling drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the hookups.
Yeah, I understand. But it is your first time on a graphically novel production at all, so why don't you break us down a little bit with your history of comic books?
Sure. Wow. Wind back the clock to 10-year-old Zombie going to the local public library and picking up volume 2 of the Ultimate X-Men, which was my introduction to comics, believe it or not. Interestingly, very similar to my introduction to manga. 14-year-old Zombie walked into a public library and picked up volume 2 of Ranma 1/2. Always volume 2. Not sure why. I have seen, I think most of, if not all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, except for perhaps Morbius. I'm not sure.
That's okay.
That one isn't really part of the MCU. That's
non-fam.
yeah, that's Sony land. It's Spider-Man without Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. So most of my comic book history is very Marvel, very X-Men. I have dabbled in Spider-Man and Batman though. Batman, I think I've read Hush,
Good
but
choice.
that was about it. So it's like very random spatterings of bits and pieces here and there when it comes to text. But definitely avid film goer.
Well, and as I mentioned, we do have our Marvel chat that has some wonderful people that I've kind of put together over the years. That Leia, the only reason that you're not on it is it's too many chats for you. It is definitely a lot of chat. But if you want to join, by all means, it is just a lot. Like Jen sometimes is like, I must mute today.
I wasn't going to say stays muted. It's always that would be one. Yeah, I would have to, because otherwise I'd be like at work or something and I would be losing my mind because I use the phone a lot at work. And so when people text, I just constantly get that in my ear, you know, and so there have been times, even just without being in that chat, there have been times where I've been on the phone at work trying to do business and all I can hear is the sound of angry bees in my ear.
Legit.
Yes. Well, I will say, especially right now, it's a fun time for this chat because almost everybody on the chat, with the exception of me and Mark Parr, are queer in some way, shape, or form. And Agatha All Along is happening right now.
Oh yeah,
which is the queerest show. And in fact, in an interview, Aubrey Plaza was like, so this is being called the queerest show in Marvel. And she goes, it damn well better be. That's what I signed up for.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So it is a great time to be alive. Zombie, you did mention the X-Men as one of your favorites. You have asked me to pick out a Nightcrawler comic for you. and I am extremely excited about it. To give just kind of a view into season 6, we have hold on, 3, 4, 5 different X-Men comics out of our 12 episodes that are scheduled. But they're all pretty good. So this may be the redemption season for X-Men and Leia. Because as anyone who has listened to this show knows, Leia refuses after season 2.
It was God, what was his name that did it? That I was like, that's it, I can't do this anymore. Okay, Hickman, Jonathan Hickman. It was after that
Hoxpox.
Hoxpox, and I was like, I literally cannot do this.
Well, that was also a lot of charts.
It was a lot of charts, graphs, math, and just like literal pages and pages of non-comics exposition and storytelling where it's like you had to, if you didn't emerge with a PhD on X-Men afterwards, then, I can't help you and God can't either.
Is this a math podcast?
Basically, I was like, oh, I don't want to do math. I just want to read comics.
That's right. Yeah, year 100, year 1000, year 1. Yeah, it was a thing.
Approximately, use the Pythagorean theorem to determine how many mutants were affected by this. Like,
Yeah, and eventually we will go through the end of the Krakoan era, because they actually did end that whole thing in a spectacular, glorious heat death of the universe kind of way. So eventually we will get to that. But today, what we're going to do is Nightcrawler's individual series from 2005 called The Devil Inside. This is actually going to be 2 stories that are actually perfect for spooky season, which we are recording this in, because the first story is all about demons and the second story is all about ghosts. So I do want to give a little bit of background here, because this is one of my favorite Nightcrawler comics. I do have these in individual issues after the Grand Purge, where I got rid of a lot of single issues and I just kept like my very favorite. So this was written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa. And in comics, that's not a huge name unless you are familiar with Archie. This is the guy that after Nightcrawler, after he did this in 2005, he kind of had the renaissance of Archie comics. He was the guy that started doing the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comics that eventually led to the Netflix series. He came up with Afterlife with Archie, which is awesome if you have not read it. It's like Archie meets the Necronomicon and is a horror Archie comic. Really,
it's actually on deck in my reading for pleasure files. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm on my way to doing so very, very soon.
It's so good. Like, Jughead causes the apocalypse because Hot Dog dies and he wants to resurrect him, and he uses the Necronomicon.
Yeah,
and it
seems about right.
Yeah, causes the zombie apocalypse. It's brilliant. And we've fallen off of giving the artists their due. And I'd like to get back to that. This is the first podcast that we're going to be recording, the first episode, where I'm actually sharing my screen where the digital comic is up, so that everybody that's here, Leia and Zombie and Jen, can all see what the actual comic is. And the reason for that is this is drawn by my favorite comic book artist. His name is Derek Robertson. He did Transmetropolitan with, he was the artist for that with Warren Ellis, but he also did 2 of Jen's very favorite series, The Boys and Happy. This is the guy that drew Happy.
Mm-hmm.
Love Happy.
And so we're going to get into this. It, of course, stars the fuzzy blue elf, Kurt Wagner, the incredible Nightcrawler. For anybody who is not tuned in before, this is how the episode will go. I am the presenting professor, Professor J. I will be taking Zombie through all of Nightcrawler, The Devil Inside. Zombie, at any time, you have the responsibility and obligation to pull the emergency brake on the show, ask any question, make any comment, clarify, whatever, give us an anecdote, whatever you want to do. If it is a question, it'll go to the assisting professor, Professor L, who will attempt to answer that question. If she can't, it goes back to me. And if neither of us can answer, instead of putting our hands up, wiggling our fingers, and yelling comic books, we have the Baronessah here, who has the innate responsibility of making up whatever answer she wants, and it is then canon. Marvel has to accept it. They have to put it into their wiki.
It's true.
They haven't answered any of my updates yet, but I'm sure they're going to get around to it once they figure out the one more day situation and fix Spider-Man.
Because with great power
That's right.
comes great responsibility.
That's right. So now here we go. Issue 1. We start at Metro General Hospital in New York. And at 8:04 p.m., Barney Franks, who's the security guard at the Children's Psych Hospital, walks past the common room and checks on the kids. Just looks through the window. The door is locked. Everything's fine. He takes a bathroom break for the first of an unscheduled bathroom break, which he has never done in his career, which leaves his post unattended. 4 minutes later, he returned and looks through the window. Out of the 14 children that were in the room, 13 of them are torn apart, and there is one 10-year-old boy sitting in the middle of the room, obviously traumatized. We then cut to Aurora Monroe, known as Storm. She is talking to Kurt. Storm, at this point in the comics, as we will find out for a second team of X-Men, is the leader. She is kind of handing out assignments to the X-Men. This is an interesting part in the X-Men's history where Charles is gone and they kind of became more organized. So Aurora is looking at basically skills of each X-Man and assigning cases to them depending on their skill set, which is something that the X-Men have never done. And for some reason, I don't know why they haven't done it, because it's brilliant. But she explains that the children who died, the 13 who died, the trauma came from external and internal injuries. Organs were pulped, eyes were burst, teeth were shattered. The video camera in the room had gone to static for the 4 minutes that the children were killed. So her determination, or her guess, is that either the children were killed by somebody who could teleport, or by the 10-year-old boy. She's assigning Nightcrawler, Kurt, to investigate, since it's an extremely sensitive matter. Obviously, it involves children, and he has the most tact and empathy. Again, why they did not think of this and why they have sent like Wolverine on these missions before is mind-blowing to me. Specifically, Cerebro is not detecting that the boy is a mutant, and Emma Frost can't read his mind. So she's going to send Kurt. Not just that, because Kurt is also like a priest. So he has training in trauma, and he has training in difficult situations. So Kurt gets to the hospital, and he meets a character who you may recognize the name of, and her name is Christine Palmer. She is an unrealistically hot nurse, as you can see on the screen.
Yeah, that's not that uniform is not regulation hospital cars.
No, that's regulation slutty Halloween.
Yeah,
Yeah, she is the Spirit Halloween version of a nurse.
someone who has worked in like 2 hospitals. That's
Right. She takes him to talk to Barney, the security guard, and leaves to go get the supervising physician, whose name is Dr. Childs. Barney immediately recognizes Kurt as an X-Man. And Kurt asks why, after 12 years, Barney took his first ever unscheduled break at that moment. Barney starts asking him about his position as a priest. It's well known. Like, basically, the X-Men are celebrities, so people know about them. So he knows that Kurt's a priest, and he starts asking if Kurt believes in forgiveness and if he believes in true evil. Kurt is starting to respond when Dr. Childs shows up and basically shuts down the entire conversation. He dismisses Barney, tells him to wait for him in the garage, which is a weird thing to say to a security guard.
It is.
And he then tells Kurt that he's unhappy that the X-Men are involved at all, and less so that the X-Men would want to expose a traumatized child to someone who looks like Kurt, someone who looks like a demon. And he's sending Nurse Palmer to write a full report of anything Kurt talks to Seth about. Seth is the 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
While they're walking to meet Seth, Nurse Palmer makes kind of excuses for Dr. Childs, saying he's a nice man. He's just like overworked and, clinical, and he's a doctor. Like basically the nurse excuse of, I mean, you can't be a brilliant doctor unless you're kind of some sort of an asshole. So she tells Kurt that Seth has been pensive and withdrawn. He's always been that way, but he hasn't spoken a word since the incident. All he does is sit there and kind of make little clay figurines and play with a piece of string. And as they walk in the room, Seth looks up, sees Kurt, and obviously is horrified because there's a demon walking into his room. Kurt teleports away and goes to the roof, where he calls Aurora, and he's like, "This is a horrible idea. I have no idea what I'm looking for. I've just fully traumatized a child. I may not be the person for the job." But as he's there, he notices hoof prints are burned into the roof. And he's like, "You know what, Aurora? I will call you back." He hangs up and he follows the tracks. They lead to a building, which is called the Dakota Building, that is hosting a meeting of the city's wealthy elite. And Kurt, through a window, sees that is where Dr. Childs is. Outside the building, Barney is causing quite the commotion. He's just basically like, they're not letting him in the building, so he's just screaming at windows, and being like, "Dr. Childs, you promised me the children wouldn't be hurt." Like, he throws money on the ground, and he says, "You can take your money back. There are kids' blood. The kids' blood is on your hands." Dr. Childs is like looking down from a window, and floors high above, and says, "No, Barney, I had such high hopes for you." And then Barney spontaneously combusts.
Just having a normal one.
And that is the end of issue 1. Issue 2. Kurt is jumping down, being like, "Well, maybe I can, I don't know, save him." He jumps down and he bamfs Barney to a nearby river. Barney keeps burning underwater and even burns Kurt underwater.
Oh, wow.
While doing this, Barney realizes that if he keeps holding on to Kurt and Kurt keeps trying to save him, he will either drown Kurt or basically burn him alive. And Barney knows he's going to die, so he pushes Kurt away and, kind of sinks down, burning. Kurt calls Aurora and explains kind of what happened. And she's like, "Okay, well, do you want to go to Doctor Strange, see if it's mystical?" And he's like, "Actually, I have somebody else that I want to consult with first." And that's where he goes to Limbo to see, and I know that this is going to take some explanation, but I will just say what's on the page, to see his ex-girlfriend foster sister who used to go by magic before Ilya Rasputin did. Her name is Amanda Sefton.
What?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, this needs some explaining. Foster sister girlfriend?
Yeah, you know how sometimes when you're adopted and you have siblings and you find them very hot and it's okay because you're foster siblings?
I've seen that porn show.
I would hope so. That's like legitimately 75% of porn right now.
Yup. Yup.
So yeah, he was raised in a porno, and
I couldn't describe this better.
He gets extremely aroused by stepladders for some reason.
But yeah. So that's the whole. I like the Ilya Dragunovich magic better, but everybody else's mileage may vary there.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So he goes to Amanda's castle in Limbo, which is the demon realm that she lives in. And he's confronted by 2 giant snakes who are like the guardians of the castle. These snakes are coded as gay, and I love them.
Yes.
They basically like just taunt Queen the shit out of Kurt.
Oh, they're so cute. You guys, like anyone listening in, these are the cutest snakes you've ever imagined.
Yes, they are very, very cute.
Every panel has a boopable snoot.
They're very large.
They are.
Yes. Amanda appears and tells the snakes to let him in, to let Kurt in. He comes in and like they're hanging out, and she basically like teases him about never coming to visit. She also calls him lover constantly.
Gross.
Yeah.
Guardian step? You ever lover brother? They're so close together.
Yeah. She already knows, by the way, about Barney. And when he's like, "Oh, have you been keeping tabs on me?" She says, some people use Google to follow their exes and some use crystal balls. I use both.
Okay.
Yeah, he tells her about the dead children and about Seth. And he mentions that all he does is make clay sculptures and plays with string. And she says, "Is the string knotted?" And he's like, "Yeah, why is that weird?" And she basically explains that in magic, you use things to symbolize what you're trying to do. So the act of tying a knot could be like locking something away to suppress it. So that Seth may have basically knotted a rope in order to lock away the secrets that he has. So as they're there, he's like, "Okay, so I need to know all about binding spells then." And she goes, "Oh, I'll tell you if you tell me all about this Nurse Palmer." This is a very sexy comic.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
They kind of just ask Bernie on Maine.
Yes.
Does she want to know if Nurse Palmer is single or something?
Everyone in this comic wants to know if Nurse Palmer is single.
Okay.
That is something that we will run into.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but she's Doctor Strange's ex, right? Or
Well done. It took me until almost the end of the comic to remember why that name was bugging me. Never in actually the comics was Christine Palmer involved with Doctor Strange. She is one of the people that is Night Nurse, who is also in the Netflix series.
Yes,
Rosario Dawson is the actress
Yes.
that plays her.
Yes.
Claire.
That's right.
Yes. And so, and Claire in the comics is also one of the Night Nurses. The Night Nurse has been held by people throughout the years, but this is the current incarnation of Night Nurse, and she is not involved with Doctor Strange.
Okay. So she is available.
He is, as we find out, horny on Maine for Kurt.
Night Nurse.
With this this knowledge now, Kurt goes back to talk to Seth, but this time he takes an image inducer. This is something that Kurt uses on occasion to basically make himself look human. It just puts an illusion over him.
Question, why does he look like Jake Gyllenhaal?
That's a great question. We've discussed this a little bit on the show. There was a period in comics history when the MCU was first MCU started in what year? 10?
2007, I believe.
Okay, so this is just before that. This is 2005. But there was a part. Oh no, because the Ultimate Comics had happened by this point, and they were already doing it in the Ultimate Comics. But anyway, there is a movement to basically make certain characters just look like actors at first, and then the actors that play them when the movies start coming out.
And then after and like post MCU as well, you see that happen a lot with character art where it, like, for example, the character of Loki just always looks like Tom Hiddleston. You know that they're using photos of Tom Hiddleston as a picture reference for the arts, something like that.
Right. Like Tony Stark has always kind of looked like Robert Downey Jr. Like that was a brilliant casting. But if you look at like a 1999 comic and you look at a comic today, you're like, okay, they obviously have just shifted completely to Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and they used to use like celebrities as reference models all the time. I think even then they'd be like, oh, let's just use this guy because he looks familiar,
So, sitting across the table from Seth, you know, Kurt reaches out and asks basically for the string that Seth has, and like looks at it and unties one of the knots, and Seth can speak.
Interesting.
Kurt asks who taught him magic, and Seth just responds, I don't know, I just know it. Which, by the way, I want to point out is never good in comics. It's never good when somebody just understands magic and hasn't been taught it. We've learned this with the Scarlet Witch. We've learned it in the MCU now.
Yep.
It's bad. Bad
Yeah.
news.
It's either an indication that like your lineage somehow like predates your human body, and like the knowledge from your evil past self is somehow projecting itself forward, or someone taught you and then changed your memories because you learned something or have done something so terrible, right?
Or it's Mephisto's fault, yes.
That's a great third option.
Yeah. Yeah, as we discussed today, I forever in my life I will have Midnight Sun's Mephisto because he is very, very gay coded and he's fantastic. So Seth is about to talk about the night the children were murdered when Dr. Childs interrupts, and with a woman who claims to be Seth's aunt. Seth is like, I ain't never seen this bitch. I don't know you. That's my purse. And she's like, yes, your father and I had a falling out before you were born. I moved away, but I moved back and I've been looking for you. I didn't know your father had died. And Dr. Childs is like, well, see, Kurt, get out. I don't want the X-Men's help anymore. So as Kurt is leaving, because there's not much he can do, he looks back and sees the aunt as a demon.
Oh, jeez.
Like basically with her hands on Seth's shoulders. And then they shut the door. They're like, well, go fuck yourself. Kurt's wondering what to do in the hallway when Nurse Palmer approaches and says he needs to see something, takes him to the morgue. All of the children's bodies have turned to ash. Barney's body, for some reason, has been moved there as well. I guess it is a hospital, but and what was left of his body is ash. And Nurse Palmer asks specifically how bodies can burn in airtight cabinets without a single alarm going off.
Bring the anthropologist here. They can't.
And that is the end of issue 2. Any questions thus far?
No. Let's move on to issue 3.
All right. We start at the mansion with my absolute favorite, Emma Frost. God, I love her. She is basically like, Kurt is fencing with someone. You know it's Kurt because he has a hole in the back of his like little fencing outfit for his tail. You do not know who the other person is at this time, but Emma's like, okay, don't stand on ceremony. By all means, draw blood. I don't care. Begin. Because Emma Frost.
Yes. Actually, I do have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, by all means.
Charles is gone. Charles is dead, or Charles is presumed dead.
Oh boy,
What's the story there?
You know what? That's a good question because I meant to look that up earlier and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I could guess, or I could look it up on Google, but we do have Miss Jennifer Allen here.
He is in space.
All right.
That is actually one of the possibilities.
He is in space with his bird woman lover.
Absolutely. Absolutely possible.
Yeah, I hate the X-Men.
I'm imagining like an osprey coated Aarakocra.
Sort of like wannabe crow lady, but not really selling it with this like weird feather ruff that goes instead of like mohawk style, anti-mohawk style.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. That was the best description of the fucking Shi'ar I've ever heard. Watch X-Men 97. You will see the race of bird people with, I swear to God, hollow bones. And I don't know exactly how they survive fights because they're a warrior race with hollow bones. Leia, I'll let you, I will give you 30 seconds, like, because otherwise we'll be here all day on why that's a bad idea.
Yeah, they tend to be more brittle and chatter usually. It's easy to break hollow bones. Smash.
Succinct.
Yes.
Accurate.
Well succinct. We do not want a repeat of taking DNA samples as Spider-Man did
Oh my
Uh,
god.
by just shoving a pole
got it.
into a grave. So the fencing match begins. Emma's like basically being a catty bitch. She's sitting on the bleachers. Yes, the X-Men have bleachers. Where Wolverine and Beast are watching with her. Where they're eating lunch, kind of watching this fencing match. Emma's bored. Until whoever Kurt is fencing against, who now you can see has brown hair, long brown hair coming out of the mask, doesn't cheat, but starts to do like pretty impressive acrobatics and is able to score a point and a match on Kurt. We find out that this is Kitty Pryde, yes, who is amazing. Storm at this moment walks in the room and asks for Kurt, and everybody's like, "Ooh, you're in trouble." It's great. It's a great scene because Wolverine is the one that goes, "Ooh," and Beast goes, "Nightcrawler's gonna get it."
Yikes.
Obviously, Kurt should not be fencing. He should be solving a demon murder. But he goes, "Yes, of course, we'll go talk. Can I shower first?" So he goes to shower, and Aurora's just sitting there watching him shower.
Okay.
Yeah. She hands him a towel. Kurt spends a lot of this comic half naked. I'm just gonna let you know, like just in a towel.
I mean, you already had mentioned that this is a sexy comic. It's next to it's equal opportunist. Sexy.
Yeah, this has got a lot of male and female gaze, non-binary gaze, if you will, on everybody. It's just, this is a horny comic.
I didn't know I was horny for snakes, and now I am.
Yeah.
Join the club.
It is spooky season. Try not to get sacrificed, my bros. Watch out for that. Watch out for that big titty goth girlfriend. So
I have a name.
So basically Kurt's like, "Listen, I'm just trying to clear my head. Like, I've been barred from the hospital. There are no more bodies. There's no more proof." And Storm's like, "Okay, well, do you want some help? I am a goddess after all." And he's like, "Yeah, I will remember that." So he goes through the case with her, basically using her as a sounding board, which is great. He says that Nurse Palmer has slipped him the records of all the children, medical records and everything else. All the children were orphans. All of them came to the hospital after Dr. Childs took over, and all of their treatments are sponsored by like New York's wealthy, all of whom live in the Dakota building. He also says that while he was outside the Dakota building, the building itself felt evil, and he can't really describe it except to say that, like, the couple of times in the X-Men where they've dealt with like things that he needs to deal with as a priest, it's that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So he says Dr. Palmer's going to help him once more. I assume that's how he gets in to talk to Seth again, who sees him lurking in the shadows for like a half hour and is like, I know you're there, man. Like, and he's like, I didn't want to scare you. And Seth is like, "Listen, you don't really scare me anymore. Like, at first you were shocking, but now I can see you're a good person, like, inside." So they sit down and talk about the clay statues he's been making. And Seth says they're not statues, they're jars. And he's made 12 of them. He needs to make 2 more. One for each of his friends that died, and one for him when he dies. And Kurt is like, "Whoa, what could that be for?" And Seth is like, "Oh, they're for the devil.
Okay.
He's real. I seen him." And Kurt asks if Dr. Childs is the devil, and Seth says, "I don't think so. I think Dr. Childs is a good person." And that is when they're interrupted by Nurse Palmer, who says Dr. Childs is being attacked in front of the hospital by Seth's aunt. Kurt bamfs over there and goes to run over. Like, basically, they're in the middle of a crowd of people. And she is attacking this man. And so he tries to run over, and Dr. Child says, "You can't get in. There's a circle." Sure enough, there's a circle in the ground, and Kurt can't move past it, but he can teleport through it, which he does. and he grabs the woman who is yelling at Dr. Childs, saying he needs to undo the circle and he needs to free their brother, who is the last of the 14. Kurt jumps on her, and she's extremely strong. He finally rips her away while she talks about tearing Childs apart. Childs points in a nearby church and tells Kurt to get her in there. So Kurt teleports her into the church, where the demons that are inside her are not happy to be there, and they flee from her. He then takes her, the woman, to Amanda in limbo so that she can heal her from demonic possession. The woman says her name is Sandra Manning, and she's not related to Seth at all. Childs found her in a shelter, fed her, clothed her, and then put demons inside of her.
Oh, so he's not a nice man at all.
No, I'm pretty sure that was non-consensual.
Yeah. There were 13 demons in her body at the same time.
Wow.
And
crowded.
yeah, that's that.
Too many. Put some back.
That's a lot.
Save some for others. And they were furious that Childs wasn't working fast enough to get the 14th demon. This is when Amanda, who is the mystical / demonologist, points out that when Lucifer rebelled in heaven, he had 14 lieutenants that joined his rebellion and were also cast down with him. Amanda says her snakes, who Kurt refers to as her gay snakes. Brad and Roger, your two gay pet snakes, have heard rumors about Satan's innermost circle, like his book club.
That's hilarious.
And Sandra says that the 14th demon is trapped somewhere, and that's when everyone realizes that the 14th demon is trapped in Seth.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, as this is happening, Dr. Childs is telling Seth he's taking him somewhere private to continue the therapy and get away from distractions. And of course, behind his back, he is holding a giant ritual dagger.
Just having a normal one.
Yep.
I like in this panel, the figures that Seth has made. There's one that's just sort of holding the sides of its face and going, oh no.
Yes.
Well, this was terrible. Oh my God, that's deep cut, but yes, that was also what I
So yes, end of issue 3, issue 4, and the end of our first story. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Kurt arrives and Nurse Palmer lets him know that Dr. Childs took him. And Kurt goes to enlist her help. In the car, Seth is like, Dr. Childs, you wouldn't hurt me, would you? You're a good person, aren't you? And he's like, no, I'm not. And yes, you are going to be hurt.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, nope, the car's soundproofed. It's locked. And by the way, there's a demon driving the car. So
up yours, children.
yeah.
That day to be a child.
Does he explain why he wants to hurt this kid?
He's just a bad guy.
He tells him that the demon Pazuzu is inside of Seth, and it's very troublesome that it didn't burst out of Seth like the other demons did his friends.
Okay. Pazuzu?
Okay. Yeah, so all right. So people who are I guess Christians, Catholics? I don't really know. Can somebody please explain to me, the Jew, why it's always Pazuzu that's doing the possessing? Is he just the guy that does that? That's his whole thing, or he's the only guy, or I don't really understand that. I don't understand demonology at all.
Is it always Pazuzu?
It's Pazuzu in The Exorcist, and I think also in a couple of more modern horror movies too.
Maybe it's the easiest demon name to pronounce.
Yeah, I feel like in oh God, not Midsummer. What's the other one? Hereditary. I think it's also Pazuzu there too. I could be mistaken, but
Oh no, I think you're right.
I feel like he just shows up all the time. So
That's
if anybody could explain that to me in their free time, rightconversations@gmail.com. We're listening.
Yeah, honestly, as someone who usually I've researched demons for pleasure, for fun reasons, for fun. This is the first time I've come across the name Pazuzu. Usually it's Azazel,
Lamashtu is usually,
yeah,
which apparently is his rival.
the son of Satan, what's his name? Something with an M. I can't remember, but
Mephistopheles.
no.
Pick up.
Nephew?
Yes, it's Matthew. That's right. M-A-T, but like the T is upside down.
Like a tar. No, like a cross.
Yes, thank you. That took way too long.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, I'm just kind of looking through the wiki article, and yes, you're right. There's a lot of stuff that uses Pazuzu and Lamashtu, which is the baby snatching antagonist of Pazuzu.
Yeah, that seems about right too. Like, and I know some of these go back to like like ancient Hebrew times, etc., and so forth, and some of them are like Sumerian and all that other.
Yeah, this one is specifically Mesopotamian.
Yeah,
It's Satan's son in the Constantine film is Memnon, and he's trying to possess. Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Just I love that scene where his face is pressed up against Rachel Weisz's stomach, and he's like golding her skin taut for the blade. Yeah, it lives rent free in my head.
I mean, pretty much anybody that was in The Mummy lives rent free in my mind.
Yes. They have a whole 3-story apartment complex in my head.
Yes. Okay. So, Childs takes Seth into the Dakota building, where he's greeted by a demon doorman, by the way, in case you're wondering if we're, being subtle about this at all, and we are no longer. As they're in the elevator going to the top floor, Childs reveals that he discovered the existence of the 14 demons in a book from Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
If you ever needed proof,
Not
Barnes & Noble was funded by Hellspawn.
And in this Barnes & Noble book, there was a ritual to set the demons free. He enlisted the other people living in the Dakota building who were only more too happy to help to set the plan in motion. And tonight, as an added precaution, he has set up a ward preventing entrance from the dimension Kurt uses to teleport. They go to a ritual room where the other 13 demons are waiting inside of a circle, along with all of the other occupants of the Dakota who are waiting for, basically, they're having a dinner party to complete this ritual. They all give a champagne toast to Seth and then go to get ready, to release the demon. One of the residents, Niles, keeps coming up to like Childs and being like, okay, are we going to get on with this? Like, what are we doing? Let's go. And Childs is like, dude, you need to calm the fuck down. And then like, Childs is like, wait a minute, there's something wrong. And he uses magic to basically reveal, that this is Kurt using an image inducer. So, the image inducer, can be shut off by magic, which is something that Kurt did not know and now does. Kurt is like, I will not let you cut this child open. And Childs is like, oh, is that what you think of me? No, I'm not going to, oh God, I'm not going to butcher a child. All I need to do is take this string with the knots and just cut the knot. He does that. And Seth basically starts expanding as the demon. Exactly. In fact, if his shirt wasn't on you, we would probably see the face or the hand pushing through his stomach. Kurt realizes that there's nothing he can do, but he's relieved because he's brought back up. As Kitty Pryde comes out of the crowd, since Kitty's power is to make things, including herself, intangible, she grabs Seth and makes his body intangible. So the demon comes out without tearing him apart. Now, this is good and bad. The good part is that Seth is unharmed. The bad part is there is now a 14th demon that is not in the circle, that is now standing there, not controlled. The crowd realizes this and are not really pleased with having a loose demon near them, so they run away. And they get to the lobby where Storm, Beast, Wolverine, Emma, and Cyclops are all waiting for them. And Storm informs them that the building has been secured and they will be answering for the deaths of 13 children. Childs, meanwhile, in the summoning room, confronts Pazuzu, while his 13 siblings are all like taunting from inside the circle. And he says, nope, I've completed the ritual. I've freed all 14 of you. That was the deal. You must serve me now. And the demons inside the circle go, actually, the ritual called for a blood-filled sacrifice. And that last sacrifice was neither sacrifice nor did it involve blood. So Pazuzu kills Childs, rips him apart immediately.
I think that's one of my favorite things about like summoning demons is how lawyeristic you have to get about
Yeah.
all the details.
So that's when the circle is broken and all 14 demons are now free, and that's not great. And that's when Kurt's backup shows up. And that is Amanda and Nurse Palmer, who this is the first time they've actually referred to her as Night Nurse. Shows up with all 14 of Seth's clay statues. Amanda, helped by Seth's innate magic within the statues, is able to trap all 14 demons within them.
Nice.
At the end of that, Kurt is debriefing Storm and basically says Amanda has all 14 statues in limbo. Storm says all the Coven are in jail. And Seth is admitted to the school where Emma is helping him learn to control his powers. And that is the end of issue 4 and the end of our first story.
Fantastic.
Issue 5, which does not really have its own story name. Kurt, Christine, Nurse Palmer, Wolverine, and Storm are walking out of a Broadway production of Phantom of the Opera and into the subway. Kurt basically says that musicals make him uncomfortable, and Christine asks if it's because of his childhood, to which he's like, no comment. Behind them a little bit. What?
Wait, what? His childhood was in the circus, right?
Yeah, it was in the circus. Well, I mean, there was a part ahead of that where he was thrown off a cliff by his mother, Mystique, into a river. But yes, eventually he was at a circus.
Do any of those things happen in musicals or something? I'm not very musical familiar, but
I don't know.
I mean,
He says
There's-
specifically, it's that people bursting into song make him uncomfortable.
all right,
Um,
that's fair.
So I don't know if that's a joke that I don't get. But tell you what, we have Miss Jennifer Howland.
Why
Yeah.
doesn't he like musicals, Jeff?
because he's a Philistine.
Because he's a Philistine. Okay.
That's fair.
Need to speak up. There's a microphone over.
Yes.
Okay. While they're walking, like, Storm and Wolverine are a little bit away, and Storm goes, exactly why are we here with them? And Wolverine said, because Kurt got comped 4 tickets instead of 2 when he called the producer, and he wants to keep things casual with Christine, so he invited them. And Wolverine is a sucker for free things and has been on a Broadway kick since Storm took him to see Boy from Oz. I will point out that this is 2005, so Hugh Jackman has been playing Wolverine for 5 years at this point.
Okay. That's hilarious.
So as they're walking, a woman screams and points onto the tracks where a flood of rats is scampering by. They kind of check down the track and see that it is an out-of-control train that does not stop at the station and keeps going. Kurt goes to grab Wolverine to teleport onto the train, and Christine grabs onto him. And Kurt talks a little bit about how it's difficult to teleport another person. It's when he's not expecting to teleport a third, it's unsettling to him. And he's like, Christine, what's going on? She's like, I'm a nurse. There may be people that need medical attention here. And he's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. So Wolverine gets all the passengers to move to the back of the train. They are typical New Yorkers who are like, yeah, well, why are we going to listen to you? And he's just like snicked. And then they do what he says. Oh, last
Decision.
Yes. Christine and Kurt get to the front of the train where the conductor has died. And they're going through the different methods that they can try to either stop the train or teleport people off the train. And that's when Storm shows up in front of the train and fries the tracks with a bolt of lightning, stopping the train. After the train stops, Christine points out the conductor looks like he was scared to death.
Mhm.
Kurt is looking out the front window, sees something, and teleports out there to see a ghost of like a worker, like a railroad worker, who just keeps saying 17 of us over and over. The ghost runs at Kurt and then goes through him and vanishes. Storm, Wolverine, and Christine show up on the tracks. Kurt has been covered in ectoplasm. Storm, who is a real one and a wingman, suggests that Christine take Kurt back to her place so he can shower.
Nice.
Kurt is walking around Christine's apartment in only a towel when they have the friends talk. And Christine is like, listen, I like you, you like me, we can have a little bit of fun. They're interrupted by Kurt getting a call on his X-Link. It's Storm saying that the mayor of New York wants to meet with them about the subway disturbances. As Kurt is meeting with the mayor, he finds out that there have been 24 in the last year. Let me just flip through all the sexy panels. And then the mayor says that Kurt tells Kurt that there have been many sightings, and this is the 4th death that's occurred. The mayor kind of subtly threatens, I guess, the X-Men by saying after the X-Men destroyed much of New York last year, that they, of course would be glad to help. Now, this instance could be many, many different events, but it's likely something in Astonishing X-Men, which we will get to this season. The mayor points out that next week is the subway's centennial. Kurt kind of puts 2 and 2 together and says, that's why there hasn't been many news reports and shit about this, is they kind of want to keep it quiet. And the mayor's like, no, safety is my primary concern, but I want you to figure it out. So Kurt calls the conductor's widow, and she agrees to meet with him. She makes him tea, and she says that her husband had been seeing the ghosts for months, but wasn't scared of them. He felt almost reassured by them up until about a week ago, where they had seemed to need help from him. And so Kurt spends like 2 hours teleporting around the subway. There are many panels of kind of where he's breaking down his relationship with Christine, and how he sees all of these women who give him their numbers, but none of them like make him feel like Christine does, and it's a very sexy time. His flashlight goes out in the dark. He replaces his batteries, and when he turns his flashlight back on, he's face to face with the 17 ghosts. And that is the end of issue 5. Last issue. We're getting the history of the New York subway system by Hank, by Beast, because of course we are.
Nice.
The original structure took 4 years to build and was 9 miles long. There were 26 stations along the route, and it cost a nickel. There are now 722 miles of track and 450 stations. The single longest express line from northern Manhattan to Queens is 32 miles long and encompasses the original subway, the original track. We flash to the ghosts who are now attacking Kurt. So apparently this is now a flashback to what happened with the ghosts. The ghosts attack him, but they are corporeal. They actually are physical. So Kurt kind of teleports around a little bit and then asks them what they want. And they stop, realizing that he wants to help them, and point down a tunnel. They lead him to a station where they have broken a hole in the wall. Inside, Kurt finds dust, debris, things like that, but he also finds bone fragments. And that is why he's talking to Beast, is because at 00:30 in the morning, he has brought these bone fragments to him and asked Beast to analyze them to see, how old they are, maybe who they belong to, anything like that. Beast, while he's like setting stuff up, is like talking about the perils of dating while being furry and blue, and how he is jealous of Kurt, who like seems to be just neck deep in women, and no one wants anything to do with Beast, which is why he's more than willing to get up at dawn and be in the lab all day working on bones.
Mood bod.
This is literally when he asked Kurt if Christine is single and if Kurt isn't interested, if he can pass on her number to her.
Oh.
Because everyone is sexy on Maine or
Yeah.
horny on Maine.
Yes.
So Kurt takes one of the other bone fragments to Amanda in limbo. To which again, we see the snakes, who is like, "Hello, stranger."
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love the snakes. Amanda is like, "Oh yeah, I can absolutely help with this. All I need to do is a little bit of necromancy." And he's like, "Isn't that bad?" She's like,
Right?
magic is magic. Like, what's your problem? Like, so she communes with the spirit that the bone belonged to, and finds out that it belonged to a man who worked in the tunnels. They warned the foreman that they were going too fast and there would be a collapse. And he says the men, and Kurt's like, "Oh, the other workers." And Amanda says yes, but they were also his family. So they were all people who were basically like brothers and cousins and everything else. So Kurt goes to the library and looks up newspaper articles and finds just one mention of 18 people believed dead in a horrific accident. There are no other obituaries. There are no other mentions. So it was basically covered up by the mayor at the time because the subway was supposed to be this great thing.
Wait, this is where the math comes in, right? This is the math part of the podcast. Because there are 17 ghosts and there are 18 dead people, right?
And there's one subway.
Yeah, one subway. Okay.
So if you needed to get cross town in 45 minutes, which route would you take?
Boo, I hate this comic book.
One train is heading downtown. The conductor is dead. It's going roughly 85 miles an hour. There's another train. So Kurt basically takes this article and goes to the subway station where he found the bones and basically just kind of yells into the darkness that he's going to try to make it right.
This is also what I do when I find bones as well.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad. Was that part
I'm
of
gonna make this right.
your forensic training?
Yes, that was actually the one-on-one session.
Communing with the dead 101.
Yes, yelling at bones.
Also, the name of your sex tape.
Yes, that's definitely the name of my second
Level at least.
Level.
Yeah,
That's
advanced yelling at bones.
that's right.
oh. So Kurt takes the article to the mayor, and basically shows him it, and the mayor's like, "I'm going to guess that what happened was, yes, it got covered up because the subway was such a big deal. And why in all these years nobody's heard anything. And why nobody's bothered to do anything, since." And the mayor's like, "You know what? I'm going to see if I can do a little more digging. I'm going to see what I can do about this." And then I have a note that he then takes a bunch of campaign contributions from Turkey.
Okay.
That is current events. And the mayor of San Francisco, who has just been indicted for doing exactly that. New York. At the Centennial event, the X-Men are in attendance, and the ghosts just start materializing.
Oh yeah.
The mayor takes the stage, and he says, "Before we celebrate this, there is something we need to discuss and bring to light." And he talks about the accident and saying that he set up a task force to find the surviving relatives and to make amends. And as he's saying this, the ghosts start vanishing one by one until the last one, the one who had initially kind of started leading Kurt to where the bones were, waves at Kurt and disappears. We end this with Kurt talking to Christine at like a diner and explaining what happened. And she's like, "How did you know it would work?" And he's like, "It's something that Amanda actually told me. She said, in a lot of ways, ghosts are just like us, Kurt. If they're cold, they want to be made warm. If they're lonely, they want company. If they've been silenced, they just want to be heard." And Christine is like, "Do you think, that the mayor will hold up his part, will do what he said?" And Kurt's like, I hope so, because if not, they're going to come back even angrier than before.
I know we'll have a good time.
Yeah. Christina's like, you did what you could. Don't beat yourself over it. Don't beat yourself up over it. And he goes, thank you. And she's like, a good friend. I know. Apparently that's all you want to be. And I'm fine with that. And that is where it ends.
So we can presume that he passes her number along peace, right?
I would hope so.
I mean, what kind of friend?
Right.
Right.
What kind of bro? So that was Nightcrawler, The Devil Within. What did you think? How did we do?
I loved it. I thought you guys did a great job. I thought it was interesting. Like, I have not read a Nightcrawler centric story. He's always like a side character, right?
Yeah.
He's always that
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, he plays like, I have a traumatic past, but I'm happy and looking forward to the future. Like, contrast to like Logan, who has many problems constantly and always.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Primarily amongst them being rage issues.
Yes. Yes.
I think it-
Temporal problems.
Very like Constantine style, like religious detective kind of vibes from these two stories.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of this comic, especially. Nightcrawler is he's such a fun character anyway, because he's been everything from like a pirate to a priest to a bunch of like, he's got a great skill set. Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he seemed to like in this particular storyline. I don't know if like he didn't really mention his faith, or like God very much, which I think, I've seen in a few other storylines, I guess, or, it's like a notable characteristic of Kurt in particular is like his faith is a big part of who he is.
Yes.
Which is interesting because I am not a very Christian faithful person. And so it's interesting that I find Kurt so appealing as a character.
Yeah.
But I think it's also because like I read his faith as hope, and I'm very, very drawn to characters that are like, lit from within with hope.
That is definitely a really good descriptor of the vibe that I have always got from the character, and I've never been able to quite put my finger on it in such a way before you said that. But you're absolutely right. I would completely agree with you there. He's just a very hopeful character, and like sometimes I find somebody who is not Christian. Sometimes I find any character, regardless of whether they're in a comic book or not, but like overly pious Christian characters to be kind of obnoxious. I've never felt that way about Nightcrawler. He's very, very devout and very clear about his faith, but he's never like in your face about it. He doesn't, proselytize or anything like that. Like,
He's not an evangelical.
yes. He's just like, hey, this is, I'm super into this, and it's okay if you're not. That's
Right.
the kind of love,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I've got a question specifically for Leia.
Yes.
And do you feel that this comic has undone some of the damage from the comic that we read where the hate group was trying to make Kurt into the Pope?
Yes. Yes, I definitely think that is, because I had forgotten about it until you started that sentence, and I was like, oh, I know we're exactly where.
It's so interesting. Like, did Kurt know that they are a hate group? He just sort of assumed like, oh, there's a bunch of people supporting me who want me to be a pope.
No, it wasn't even that. Like, they were years away from their plan. Oh God, hold on. Now I gotta remember the name of the story. We've got so many of
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember the title of the story.
I sat in on that one.
I feel like there was a storyline at some point where he had to go to Germany for some reason to like look into a church.
Yeah.
And
Holy War.
that everyone was. Oh yeah.
Holy War is the name of the comic.
Ah, okay, yeah.
That's right.
Look up our past episode on Holy War. But yes, he's gone back to Germany. He's gone back to his circus a few times. He runs into Amanda pretty often. Excalibur, he does a lot of Excalibur comics, which I love him in, because that deals a lot with like the Fey world is a big thing with that. And yeah, I mean, he's a fun character.
The question though, There are so many people that are throwing themselves at the feet of Nightcrawler. Does he have any children? Like canon children in any of the storylines?
I
Yes.
feel like he
Not-
don't. Yeah.
One of his kids from an alternate universe is part of like basically has come over
Mhm.
and is part Talia Wagner. She is known as Nocturne, and she was originally one of the Exiles. Exiles is a fun comic because it's basically a group of people from the multiverse, all these different multiverse characters that go around solving problems in the multiverse. It's just kind of fun.
Yeah. It's almost like the Star Trek version of the MCU, like
Yeah,
visiting different places, right?
yeah.
I don't know if there are any Star Trek people here, but I know more about Star Wars than Star Trek, but
I get it. Yeah, she's in. It doesn't say what universe she's from, but she's actually the daughter of that reality's Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch.
really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, she's a fun character. The Exiles also have one of my favorite, alternate reality characters, obviously because her parents are, or his parents, her parents. Anyway, are Gambit and Rogue.
Oh, wow. Yeah, actually, going back to Amanda being a foster sister, who were his foster parents?
The people who ran the circus.
Okay. And so was Amanda in the circus, just as like the magician type character?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I know comics doesn't necessarily follow a large line of logic in particular, but it's just something that's interesting to me that, a lot of the times we have these characters that have families and parents, ?
Right?
But we never really, we follow individuals and we follow their love lives, but we don't necessarily follow like the relationships they have with people who have formed their identity one way or another.
Sefton. So I tried to Google it, and it brought me to Amanda Seyfried, and I'm like, nope, not her.
Nope. Not even close. Not a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my mind, I think it's less of a circus and more of a carnival, a la Nightmare Alley. Weird, twisted movie with Bradley Cooper. If you haven't seen it,
Great movie.
If you haven't seen it, see it. It is not what you think it is.
It's going on a list.
It's really good.
Being post pharmacy school, there is a long list of things
I'm
that I
sure.
have not seen for the past 4 years. I said Nightmare Alley,
Yeah, Nightmare Alley.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
Okay. Apologies.
No, it's all right. Yeah, it doesn't say what role she played, but just that her dad ran the circus and was a sorcerer.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
Normal.
Yeah, as we do.
So thank you, Zombie, for joining us today. This was fun. I love sharing Kurt with the world. And everyone, please join us next time where we're going to continue this X-Men train. We're probably not going to redeem anything in Leia's eyes because we are doing the second part of Age of Apocalypse. We will have Chris Wolf back to keep explaining Age of Apocalypse. Where we left off, there was like a one-handed Wolverine, and it was
And just a constant picture of me doing the shrug emoji.
So yeah, until then, take it away, Vandello.
A little wreck conversation, some deep reactions, please. All this comics narration ain't elating me. A little more talk, a lot less read. A little fight, baby, is what I need. Close the trade, open up your brains. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me. Vendetta 2021.